Now to our Europe correspondent, Adam Parsons, who joins us now. It's interesting, isn't it, with the war in Ukraine? One of the consequences of it does feel as though Ukraine is almost leaning further towards the West as a result, with this push particularly to join the European Union.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that this has pushed Ukraine and indeed Moldova. Moldova has also just been granted, or has been recommended to be granted, candidate status. Two countries who were between, effectively, Russia and NATO, and both of them now leaning towards joining the EU. Both of them have officially put forward their papers and now have got candidates that have been recommended for candidate status. The reason I hesitate here is this is not actually in the gift of Ursula von der Leyen or the European Commission to grant this status. It actually comes down to the leaders of the EU countries, the European Council. They'll meet later this month to discuss this. But I think there's a couple of things behind this. Number one is that the EU is effectively an expansionist organisation. It does want new members. It does want to extend its reach. But I think when you look clearly at Ukraine and to an extent Moldova, but obviously Ukraine is the focus of this, a nation that wanted to be neutral, and as you said, is now the almost unintended consequence for Russia of this action is the very thing that Russia claimed to want to stymie is now much more likely to happen. Now, let's immediately state that when you get candidate status, it does not mean that's it, you're through the front door, you're effectively an EU member. There are countries, Turkey is a good example, who've been on the candidate list for decades without ever getting EU membership. But I think Ukraine will find itself in a different position. It will clearly be facing a great deal of focus. The EU is going to want to show that it is on the side, effectively, of a country that faces military oppression. The flip side, though, is that there are these hurdles that have to be reached, that have to be crossed. She talks about some of them there. Proof about the rule of law. You have to demonstrate the independence of the judiciary. You have to have very strong, coherent anti-corruption laws. Ursula von der Leyen, they're praising Ukraine for its work to limit the powers of oligarchs. Going to want to see a lot more of that. And I think crucially also, the European Union runs the single market. It is about as strong an example of free market capitalism as you could ever want to see. In order to join it up, you have to demonstrate that you have your own thriving market economy. At the moment, Ukraine doesn't. I mean, it's a country at war, so it's pretty hard to demonstrate that. But even before it was invaded, it wasn't working in quite the way the EU would have wanted. So there's quite a few hurdles to get across in normal times. Clearly, while it's at war, I think this is more than anything a symbolic endorsement of Ukraine. And I should finally say there are a whole load of countries in the Western Balkans who are ahead of Ukraine, ahead of Moldova in the queue, who've been waiting for membership for many years now. They are going to have to also be told that for all the love that's being thrown at Ukraine, these countries, the like of Serbia and North Macedonia, remain ahead in the queue. This doesn't mean Ukraine is going to become an EU member anytime soon, but it is a sort of big political hug and embrace that's been given to the Ukrainian people.